Buenas a todos, chavales. Otro viernes más con el Star Citizen Live, que esta vez se titula igual que la vez anterior porque no han cambiado el título todavía. Entonces, pues nada, chavales. Ahora empezará la salsa, supongo. Ah, Y nada, yo espero que... punto importante. Aquí está bien la calidad. Vale, la calidad del streaming. Maravillosa, perfecta. Ahí estamos.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Star Citizen Live Landing Zone Content Team. I'm your host, Jared Huckabee, and if you've never seen Star Citizen Live before, it's where we take about an hour at the end of our week, hang out with some of our developers, showcase a little bit of what they work on, answer questions from you, the Star Citizen community, and generally just try not to reveal anything like a Nine Tails lockdown, if at all
Buena Frankie.
possible. Joining us on the show this week, we have our esteemed panel of guests from the Landing Zone content team. This is not everybody on the team, but this is a good cross-section sampling of those who make our Landing Zone. So we're going to take a few minutes and just go around the room and introduce everybody here. We're just going to start, clockwise from my right. Boy, who are you? What do you do for Star Citizen?
Hi. Yeah, my name is Boy. I'm an environment artist in the Frankfurt studio of the LZ team. So
Este pavo que está aquí es un crack. Este es el que está haciendo el tema de la distribución de energía, el esquema todo este para la distribución de energía que nos enseñó con la Hammerhead y tal de los relays y todo eso, el trabajo de ingeniería.
Thank you for being here. Jumping immediately to my left, this is almost like Hollywood Squares. If I had two more people, we could have done a Hollywood Squares gag. Manuel, who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hey, I'm Manuel and I'm level designer, and I was responsible for Area 18 and currently Horizon. In between, I also did a bit of modular work for rest stops and the prison.
Cool.
So,
And you were just recently seen on our Horizon piece that we aired yesterday on ISC.
exactly.
Luan, no stranger to Star Citizen Life, probably the person on our panel that's been on the show the most. All the same, tell people who you are, what you do for Star Citizen.
Sure. Hi, I'm Luan. I'm a senior environment artist on the UK LZ team. I've been here for a little while. I've worked on a bunch of stuff from, original rest stops to Star Marine to Lorville, Area 18, New Babbage, now Orison, and a bunch of other stuff in between.
And I want to take a minute to commend you on you owning the heaviest book known to man, the Ralph McQuarrie Doubles Concept book from Star Wars. I have it.
It really is.
It really is the
passed out
heaviest.
carrying that once.
I don't know what paper it's made of, but it is the heaviest book known to man. Nick, center square. Who are you? What do you do for Star Citizen?
Hi, I'm Nick Etheridge. I'm the lead environment artist for the Landing Zone team. I've worked on landing zones from Area 18 onwards. So that's Area 18, New Babbage, Horizon, and before that, many other things like space stations and outposts, ground locations. I've been here for, I think, coming up to 7 years now, so quite a while.
Yeah, we started very close to the same time. And I see you have your Clad Imperium exclusive Pico prominently on display in the back.
Me vais a permitir que esté así un poco de relax calentando y ahora cuando empiece a hacer las preguntas y todo eso ya las comentamos y hablamos y todo esto.
Citizen.
Well, my name is Andreas. I'm the lead level designer for Star Citizen, and
¿Has visto lo que te he dicho, Randur, de los precios de las gráficas? En plan, qué pasada,
Designer, lead level designer.
there we go.
That's what you said. Lead level designer.
Third time's a charm.
Hey, they don't hire me because I'm good at this. Last but certainly not least, Josh. Who are you and what do you do for Star Citizen?
Hi, I'm Josh. I'm the principal environment artist for Star Citizen. I've been at the company for a little over 3 years now. I started out on Squadron 42 and I moved over to the LZ team over the past few years, and I've covered things from New Babbage and Horizon. So, but my role within the team is kind of more focused around workflow and setting art benchmarks.
Cool. Now, for this show, we're going to do things a little different. We're going to get to the backer questions in a bit, but we're going to start with a bit of a history lesson here. We're going to go through the overall development of our landing zones throughout Star Citizen's history, and the story of our landing zones starts with the original ArcCorp, the one that came online in Alpha 2.0 way back in the day. It wasn't integrated into the persistent universe at the time. It was a separate mode. I know that not a lot of folks here worked on that one back then, but just because I don't want to leave it out, what do we remember? What do we remember about?
Quieren hablar un poco sobre. Quieren hablar un poco sobre la primera vez que vimos Área 18, que se entraba una parte. Se entraba aparte en el verso, ni siquiera era un planeta Área 18, ¿no? Y entramos a través del hangar y todo eso. ¿Qué hemos aprendido de eso? Es lo que quiere saber. O lo que quiere comentar.
Yeah.
I remember actually when I started, it was being worked on, but I didn't work on it personally. And I think actually visually and kind of the experience, I quite liked it. I remember watching it, and I thought it was pretty good. But it was very specific to what it was built for. It was built before procedural planets was a thing, so it was a specific landing zone with essentially a skybox as a background, like lots of buildings that were textures and simple meshes that kind of went back. But the idea was you'd go down to a landing zone and there'd be nothing else on the planet to do. So that was a very specific plan for it. But obviously since then, landing zones are very different. You can fly all around them, and they're on planets where you can visit more stuff for. So I think lessons from that were how, and challenges from that were how do we build landing zones where it's not okay, now you're in the landing zone, we just need to tailor the experience to being inside it. It's no, you have to tailor the experience to being inside it, to flying around it, to landing around it, that kind of thing.
Está comentando de que las zonas de aterrizaje en esa época, cuando hicieron Área 18, estaba pensado en plan de que pues así van a ser, ¿no? En plan, tú llegabas y tenía pues un skybox y estaba totalmente separado, o sea, era todo fachato, ficticio. Y con el paso del tiempo pues evolucionan las cosas a incluso poder volar alrededor de las zonas de aterrizaje como estamos haciendo hoy. Y bueno, el aprendizaje es que en un principio pues tenían que hacer solo lo que era estar allí en la zona de aterrizaje sin tener que salir de ella, y de repente pues no solo salir sino poder volar alrededor y todo lo que le rodea, ¿no? Que ha cambiado mucho lo que es una zona de aterrizaje en sí comparada con 40 años.
Going forward, let's see what's up. So after that, we flash forward to Alpha 3.0. So Alpha 3.0 is our next major milestone. We've removed that old kind of separate Area 18, and we've added our first true landing zone in the new fashion, which was Levski on Nyx. I know not a lot of folks who worked. Did anybody work on Levski? What do we remember from Levski in our first attempt at actually
Está diciendo que después de eso pues desapareció esa zona y construyeron Levski con su nuevo sistema de crear zonas de aterrizaje. Y si alguno de los que están ha trabajado en Levski y tal, y está hablando este señor, ¿no? que ha trabajado en los interiores de Levski.
Plus building all the exteriors and all the hangars, and going back to what Nick said as well, you know, this whole idea of integrating a small landing zone into a much larger exterior and everything that went with that, right, which was a bit of a new challenge. Right? So the interior.
Dice que fue retante el hecho de tener que integrar lo que es la zona de aterrizaje en una zona de aterrizaje más grande, son todo lo que es alrededor de todo lo que es Levski y demás, ¿no?
ways that Levski. Is there anything that we could see in that original Levski that we brought forward to landing zones after that?
I mean, it was, I would say, like hangars, for example, was one of the kind of first stab in the ground there, right? The hangars in Levski were built quite bespoke, and they remain bespoke to this day. But it was also takeaway from that we need to go in a much more modular approach with various things and create common elements to share between different landing zones to speed up the work. Otherwise, this will take forever.
It was a lot about how you get into the landing zone as well, which I
Yeah.
think Levski was very. I mean, when I personally look back at it, if I was approaching it via like a buggy or something, I wouldn't really know where to go a lot of the time. And now things are pretty straightforward with how you get into a landing zone, in, out, around, and all that stuff. I mean, even to the point where in New Babbage, we added those surface entrances as well. So,
yeah, going on from that, the actual layout as well, like Levski is very maze-like and kind of hard to navigate around. There's lots of tunnels, and that's kind of nice in a traditional level design. But these are like social hubs, so in that respect, it wasn't very successful. And I think the later landing zones were much more successful in a kind of more of a streamlined layout, more of the social hub, and kind of leaving the more traditional level design to other locations. That makes sense.
Right.
And also with the kind of multiple floors that they have in Levski, create a bit of a. It's still there actually. This logistic nightmares of elevators, where you think you're in some kind of Kafka novel or something. I don't know.
Now, Levski recently went back to its home planet in another system. When it comes back, without revealing too much, do we expect it to be the same Levski that we're familiar with, or do you think we might take the opportunity to tweak and revisit?
I mean, we do have our secret lists of things that we would like to do, so who knows what comes. There might be certain...
Bueno, estaba comentando un poquito en general el tema de Levski, de todo el tema social, o sea, de los social hubs, que bueno, de la zona de viviendas y demás, que pues de cómo han cambiado ese tipo de enfoque con las nuevas zonas como Lorville, Microtech, con respecto a Levski, ¿no? Y también hablando del problema de los ascensores del infierno, que todavía siguen teniendo algunos problemas, ¿no? Hablando de esto. Y también estaban preguntando, Lando, si, bueno, que ahora mismo Levski sabemos que ha desaparecido, que se ha ido al sistema Nix, y si cuando vuelva, pues podemos esperar algunos cambios, ajustes y tal. Y dice el desarrollador que siempre hay una lista secreta, ¿no? de cosas que quieren hacer. Y que guiño, guiño, jaja risas, ¿no?
On that particular art style set that will just inherently make Levski look a little bit better, right? So there's things like that as well. But I think probably on the planet side will be a lot of the improvements that come in, because our tech evolves a lot, and we do a lot of updates, like using more realistic assets and materials now on the planets that will likely propagate to Levski as well.
Yeah, and also from a gameplay side, I mean, we're getting more and more features into the game, and we'll have to add them into the locations as well. So.
Están hablando que al final irán evolucionando el resto de zonas de aterrizaje y muchos de esos objetos o de mejoras se propagarán a Levski también.
As we continue discussing landing zones, we're going to see a parallel between the landing zones and our spacecraft development, in that we get better with each successive one that we build.
Está diciendo Escolando que pasa lo mismo que con las naves, en el sentido de que a medida que van avanzando, van evolucionando, se vuelven más inteligentes, se vuelven más eficientes y pues van aprendiendo a hacer mejor las cosas, ¿no? Tanto como es la línea de trabajo de naves como en la línea de trabajo de las landing zones.
Quality as the newer ones, so it definitely creates a desire on many people's parts to go back and revisit and tweak and bring these things forward whenever possible. So while we may not have something specific to share about that with Levski today, you can probably expect some work being done before it makes its return later on.
Vuelvo a insistir descolando o guiñando el ojo, así, de que aunque no vamos a esperar hoy de pues aunque no vamos a soltar nada sobre Levski, podéis esperar cambios cuando vuelva. En fin.
The overwhelming majority of an entire asteroid. Now, I know a lot of the work from Grimhex was done with our partners at the time at Behavior, but I know we did some white box and stuff here. So, what do we remember from the original development of Grimhex?
I mean, the reason for Grimhex being added in the first place was that we needed a place for bad people to spawn. Right?
Criminals, not bad people. They could still be.
Fair enough.
Just
People
opportunists, Andreas.
De que nos hablen un poco sobre Gringes a los inicios y tal. ¿Y qué nos puede decir ello? Dice, el motivo de por qué el Gringes apareciera fue que necesitábamos un espacio para la mala gente, ¿no? Para las malas personas y tal. Y dice Discolando, criminales, no mala gente. No tiene que ver una cosa con la otra y tal.
So that was one of the main reasons. We did the white box in-house in Frankfurt way back when, right? And it was pretty straightforward, actually. I mean, it was an asteroid base. You know, it's not much more than that. It's a base inside an asteroid, and it was, yeah, nothing really big, particular about it.
You know,
we did want, I mean, like with all the landing zones that we build, of course, we try to future-proof them as much as possible. We try to add in, plan for the future, make sure that, we do want to have hospitals 5 years down the line from now, so you really have to think quite far into the future of all the kind of things, and also just use common sense and we can guess what we want to have.
And recently, we've made some additions and improvements to Grimhex. We added the raceway section, for the long fabled, scramble races that are supposed to occur there. And then I think we added we did some hangar work there recently, didn't we?
Yeah, we added a full suite of hangars, and it never really felt like a full, complete landing zone until we did that. Now it feels like more integral, and it's more consistent with the rest of the landing zone. So there's enough slots for players to land in properly and all that kind of thing.
Están hablando un poco sin más sobre el tema de lo que es las zonas de aterrizaje que han añadido a Gringes. Quiero dar un aspecto más de zonas de aterrizaje poniéndolo a la par del resto de zonas de aterrizaje. Y sobre el tema de las carreras de la zona que han añadido, pues que eso servirá en el futuro para hacer el tema de las carreras de naves y demás.
We have now. We didn't have then. And we obviously didn't have the hangars themselves. Things like where the actual racing location goes. Before, I think it had some sort of tunnel or something that we had white boxed and put in. So we blew that out. So again, it required a lot of asteroid moving around. But so yeah, that was quite those are things that we learned from later locations that we came back and applied or had to rejig some things to make it feel a little bit more like a modern Star Citizen location.
Yeah, that's the beauty of common elements like hangars is that we can go to old locations and input them. I know there was a bit of rework in the asteroid, but in terms of inputting hangars, didn't actually take too long, did it, Lauren? It was quite simple because we'd already established what a hangar is, and maybe the art changes between landing zones. Like in New Babbage, you've got a different art style of hangars, but essentially we've established what that is, what the experience is for the player, and so it makes refitting old locations much smoother process. So the idea behind that's kind of the idea behind the common elements like hangars and habs and things like that.
So at this point, we've dabbled. Everything up to this point has been dabbling, has been experimentation, has been learning this new tech, learning how to integrate things with our new procedural planets and stuff. Next, though, is to my mind, it's your first major milestone in landing in major landing zones, and that's the development of Lorville. So now that you've got a little bit of Levski here, now that you got a little bit of Grimhex here, now you're going to make your first giant city on a planet. Where do you start? What the scale is so immensely different.
Una vez que han hecho Levski, que han hecho Gringes y tal, ¿qué es lo que evolucionó y qué qué es lo que sucedió, ¿no? Cuando se enfrentaron al tema de hacer lore building. Pues era la primera gran zona de aterrizaje que van a enfrentarse, ¿no?
Like a very simplified version of the landing zone to make sure it hits all the beats in the right order. Like the walking isn't too crazy, not too long. It plays well. The navigation, you can find your way through the landing zone basically, and it has all the common elements in the right place, like the security, the hangars, and it's basically watertight, right? Then we have the white box, and that's basically where the artists jump in and they take the white box to gray box, and then to final art. That I say it really fast, but that of course that takes quite a while. It's a very big place. I guess it's maybe
You guys
even the
did it in
biggest.
a couple of days, right?
It was easy. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
we cranked out that art like it was nothing. No, it took us quite a while, of course, because we've never done something on this scale before. I think. So it was also talking a lot with technical artists, getting stuff like how do you drop a planet, like a flat planet or a flat city on a curved planet. That's something we also never did before. So we needed the tools to support that.
Bueno, están hablando de... Píllate el Toby, por Dios, Reggae. No la cagues así. Están hablando bueno, de que primero pues tienen que hacer una versión muy sencilla, una versión básica de lo que es la ciudad, para asegurarse de los elementos comunes, zona de aterrizaje, zonas de habitaciones, zonas de seguridad, que estuvieron hablando antes de que todas las zonas tienen una zona en común y demás. O sea, tienen esas zonas en común, esos espacios en común, esos requisitos en comunes, para que tenga sentido que es una zona de aterrizaje, ¿no? Y bueno, pues que después de asegurarse que lo que son las travesías y las rutas dentro de la ciudad pues eran pues, las adecuadas, pues luego pues hicieron todo el proceso de arte y demás, ¿no? Y que les llevó un montón de tiempo por ser la primera vez que se tenían que enfrentar a un reto así, que le llevó bastante tiempo, ¿no?
It was like Lorville is my baby, together with a couple of other artists.
What about anybody else's experiences with the Lorville?
It was also one of our first locations that we had a landing zone that was in the middle of a huge kind of city kind of thing, right? We had to develop the transit system of how to bring the players in and out of locations and travel through those very long distances. Those trains are very fast. I doubt you can catch up in a ship, but yeah, so that was one of the challenges as well, because you have a big city that's located on a planet, you have the landing zone in the middle, and then we had to add all these gates because maybe they come from a different direction. We actually timed it once. We had one gate to start with, and if you came from the wrong side, it would take you like 65 minutes or something to run around the city to get to the gate, and we were like, wow, we need more gates. This doesn't work,
I remember testing that. I
just
went in editor and I just walked from one side to the other side of the city just to see how long it took. It was something like that. Yeah.
It's pretty insane. That's kind of when you start realizing the scale of everything, right? When you get on foot and start walking.
So the scale
I remember talking to one of the artists a while back too about the whole scale.
Están hablando de la necesidad de hacer un transporte interno, un metro y tal, porque luego se dieron cuenta también de que caminando en la ciudad, de realmente la escala de la ciudad, cuando decidieron pues plantearse el caminar de una punta a otra y demás, ¿no?
They had gone over like a whole bunch of iterations and designs to make it work, and it's pretty successful what we have now, but we learned a lot of lessons in that and have brought it through with the rest of our landing zones as well. But that was kind of the first time that we had ran into that issue, because like Levski's like, it's kind of just a more like localized location, but this is a huge city, so you have like kilometers worth of blending the city into the environment, right?
Yeah. Besides, it's not like the people from Lorville want to keep everyone in or anything, but it's a it's a city where you can't traditionally just slowly make suburbs and then just a few houses are left and then farmland starts, etc. It's this very Andreas, I think you quite like the Hurston policies there, but it's very walled in. It doesn't let anybody
out. Of the future. Yeah.
That's right.
Lorville was where we introduced everybody's favorite, the no-fly zone.
Very
And
authoritarian.
Oh.
and our plastic bag heads, right? That was successful.
Alright.
Like Andreas said, the it was the first time we did a transit system outside of elevators, and there was I remember conversations about this, and most people, to be honest, were like, do we really need to do an actual physicalized train that would run on tracks? Can we not have it go underground, or can we have it spawn and then go across and then go into a tunnel and then teleport to the next area? And to be fair, like, a lot of us were just like, come on, Chris, do we really have to do this? This is such a technical pain.
Le está diciendo de que realmente tenemos que hacer un tren que sea fisicalizado y demás, y que el personaje vaya tal. Y diciendo el pavo, pero Chris, o sea, hablando con Chris Robes, pero vamos, Chris, ¿en serio tenemos que hacer esto fisicalizado? ¿No podemos hacer una especie de teleport de que te metas por un túnel y tal? Hay que hacer el sistema de transporte real y, joder, es una pasada.
Like, one of the biggest technical challenges with Lorville, apart from like the scale as a whole, was trying to get the first working train into
I
the
can
game.
I can remember Dan Truffin in those Tuesday meetings, just
Yes.
week after week, showing the next version of the train, and Chris just being like, no, it needs to be a real train. It needs to be a physical train. It's like it should hit people.
With the trains, just like a small side note as well. I mean, I know some people, aren't necessarily super enthusiastic about traveling times. Sitting on a train for 1.5 minutes, you're like, I just want to sell my pistol. Come on. But I mean, because they are physical, we do have to traverse those distances. And even though we try to make those trains as fast as possible, it is going to take time. That's just part of the scale of the universe, right?
And one thing that Lorville introduced, which is a pretty key, time of the PU and everything, is the common elements. It was the first time we put in the hangars, the habs, the transit,
security checkpoints.
Yeah, security checkpoints. That's right. I'm trying to think if there was anything else, but so the UK team was heavy at work on the common element part, whereas the German team was heavy at work on the actual Lorville side of things. So my involvement there was a bit of work on the hangars. Actually, I did the big gorilla head, as we call it, as you come into the hangar and it looks out. That was always a name of contention, but that's what it's called here. I also worked on the hab lobby at the top of the big crane-looking building, and the transit where the train actually comes in and out. And just on the subject of trains, I think that was honestly, I think one of my most fun tasks here was that transit platform, because it was an opportunity to really call out, look at reference of transit platforms around and make something that's very oppressive. Like, I think my favorite part about it is as you come in, it's you've got the gate, and then you come in and you look up. It's nothing but pipes. And let me tell you, I spent like 3 to 4 days just dressing pipes on the ceiling of that entire platform. The rest came out much faster, but the pipes, I was connecting things from one side to the other, going, oh yeah, this makes sense. And then you look up and it's just this network of pipes because you're below the plates. It was one of the most fun like tasks I had here. It was just so...
Está comentando sobre bueno, las cosas que ha creado el Levski, que parece ser que donde está la zona, toda la que es la zona de aterrizaje y demás, le llaman el gorila, o alguna movida que tienen ellos interna, parece ser. Estuvo trabajando también en el edificio de la H, ¿no? Y también en las zonas que una de las cosas que más le llamó la atención fue trabajar en el tema de las plataformas del tren, y del hecho de hacerlo con esa sensación de opresión, y de que cuando te metes pues está todo lleno de tubos. Y bueno, para que nos hagamos una idea de cómo trabaja esta gente a nivel de detalles, que se pasó un montón de tiempo, dice, conectando todos los tubos haciendo todas las conexiones de tuberías y demás, y que es una de las cosas de las que más le gustó realizar.
Like Andreas said, that would just be another common element, and we build our landing zones with a lot of future proofing in mind. So we don't just have the shops and the hangars that we have currently, we always look for opportunities for a doorway, a corridor, a back alley, or whatever, where we'd say, okay, this is where a restroom could be. This is a door to there. So we know, and there's space for it behind that, behind that door. So we say, okay, in the future when we get restroom common elements and we get pooping tech and whatever you want to call it, then that can then be slotted in. Just like we were saying, I mean, Grimhex did need a bit of rework, but from like Area 18 onwards, there's a lot of extra space and potential and doorways and things like that to have all these kind of things, not just restrooms, but more stuff than that. Because we always want to future-proof a location. We don't. I know we're talking about reworking things like Levski, but we don't want to, break it up and start from scratch and go, oh, we got to redo. It's more like modules that slot in. You get the kind of vanilla landing zone, as it were, and you can connect. Hey, we can connect the hospital on here. We can connect more stuff on there. So that's always been our aim. For a while now.
Está diciendo que una de las cosas para esos drones de aterrizaje ha sido siempre el tratar de hacerlas modulares de tal manera de que tú tienes la versión vanilla de lo que sería la zona y luego poder añadir el hospital, añadirle más cosas sin necesidad de tener que hacer todo desde la nada. No, con esto no está diciendo que no vayan a retrabajar Levski, ¿no? Sino que bueno, que tienden a poder hacer las cosas modulares y para hacer el trabajo más sencillo, la vida más fácil, ¿no? Está claro.
There is something that you may walk by and be like, it's a bit weird, this look like this area here, but there's usually some intention to expand, because we can't build that thing being tiny and then being like, okay, we gotta add this toilet in now. Where the hell do we do it? I think actually, boy, you added a nice toilet door somewhere in New Babbage, right?
In the Spy Grand Lobby, yeah, we have two restroom doors, so maybe sometime in the future.
One step closer.
If you're
We did the
just
same with the transit tracks at UBAB as well. Boy, you worked on that, and there's the main one that goes to Spire Grand, but there's a lot of other ones that sprawl out from that main one. So and not all of them are like perfectly connected up with the transit, but we aim for some to potentially go, to another point of interest or somewhere in the future. It's always there. Even if we sometimes we know, okay, we're going to put the hospital here, but sometimes we don't, and we're just like, okay, maybe there's in the future we'll put something there, but we don't know exactly what it is.
Claro, están hablando un poquito sobre el metro de Microtech ahora mismo. Está comentando que vemos que hay varias vías, que algunas están sin conectar, y nos comenta de que bueno, que algunas veces efectivamente sabemos que vamos a poner aquí un hospital, pero otras veces no lo sabemos, pero sí podemos evaluar posibilidades. Entonces, aunque no estén conectadas ahora mismo al sistema de tránsito, ese tipo de carriles de tren, ¿no? Se quedan pues para una futura posibilidad de expansión.
Fine, that's okay.
Esto es relacionado con eso, de que siempre están buscando la posibilidad de posibilidades de que se puedan agrandar las cosas y demás, ¿no?
the one thing you wish you could go back and change if you could?
Favorite aspect is the utopian atmosphere.
It's just a really all-around positive vibe,
It warms your heart. That's good.
It's the place where Andreas feels most comfortable.
Yeah. For me, it's the plates. It really is that feeling of being under the plates most of the time. They're so oppressive. I think we really managed to put that through, right? And I think that's what makes Lorville so special. What I would change is I think we've learned so much from building cities. I think there's a lot that we can go back to and do to the feel of the scale, like either by improving materials, improving meshes, but even if we keep it within the...
Está comentando el otro que una de las cosas que más que le gustaría retocar o cambiar es el tema de la atmósfera, porque no es lo suficientemente chunga. Y este dice que una de las cosas que le gusta es todo lo que es pues esa sensación que se consigue de opresión de la ciudad, y que lo que sí que cambiarían de cara al futuro sería la perspectiva de la escala, poder obtener, que han aprendido de hacer otras ciudades en el camino de poder dar al jugador la perspectiva de la escala de donde está y que el Lorville quizás no se aprecia tanto de todos los sitios, ¿no?
We suddenly went to do this super shiny marble, like this golden utopia, and that was super fun for me to work on. Yeah.
It was refreshing for everyone, right? Because
yeah.
It's a little bit of a shock when you enter there from the rest of the city. You go like, damn, these people are rich.
I did like panel materials for as long as I was here at that time, and then suddenly we came, we had requests for marble and gold, and I was like, oh, I don't even remember how to do these organic materials. What I gotta do? That was fun.
Yeah.
Está comentando que una de las zonas, pues la zona de negocios, que fue algo muy interesante para hacer por el tema de que fui agradable de trabajar con todos los materiales de oro, mármol y demás. Y que cuando le hicieron la petición, el otro compañero, ¿no? Dice que cuando hicieron la petición de materiales, que ni siquiera ya se acordaba cómo se hacían ese tipo de materiales, aparte de los materiales de rollo super industrial pues tanto de Levski como de Lorville, ¿no? Y al final que fue bastante refrescante el poder cambiar a ese estilo, ¿no?
Going off, and I think that's really cool. What I would expand on, or like to work on in the future, maybe is like expanding the outskirts, the suburbs of the city, more like adding more shanties in, and more like populating it with life. Yeah, just
Actually,
adding more life
Manuel,
to the city.
isn't your favorite part of Lorville and
Don't say
my
it.
favorite part together, me and Manuel, the restricted areas?
Yes.
Isn't that, your favorite? He tells me every day, he goes, man, we should really make some more restricted areas.
I can't get enough, so we worked a whole lot of time on that like last year, and did some changes and reworks on that. So that was a fun experience, right?
Yeah, it was the most fun I had here.
The views and opinions of Luan and Manuel do not represent those of Cloud Imperium Games. Robert's station is
Están troleando porque están hablando de que lo que más les gustaba era trabajar en zonas de restricción de vuelo. Pero evidentemente están troleando porque además Discoland ha dicho la opinión de oficial de Cloud Imperium Games no es representada por estos dos individuos, ¿no? En plan, pues al final las zonas de restricción de vuelo pues son una puta mierda. Es una putada porque fastidia mucho la experiencia, ¿no?
Family versus people who are against them and all that kind of stuff. All the suffering of the small people versus the absolute decadence of the rich, right? So that's also something that I would like to return to and work on in the future, because that thing is something that really misses there.
Cool. Let's go ahead and move into Area 18 Redux. After Lorville, we got a chance.
Me parece que estaba comentando el artista, ¿no? El desarrollador, de el volver a revisitar Lorville para volver a trabajar en el hecho de que se vea bien reflejada lo que es la diferencia entre que hay gente muy rica y gente pues que no tiene tanto dinero y que es oprimida, ¿no? Y pues que ya revisitarán eso en el futuro.
Some of the main areas need help with a lot of the extra stuff around. We can talk about it.
Yeah, so I personally worked on the Metro Center actually, and some of the alleys leading away from that, and the alleys leading to Pachico, connecting everything, and as well the plaza you come onto when you leave the Habs actually. So yeah.
The transit routes of those shuttles flying through there. Oof, that's first time we did a kind of a transit route that's not on the track, and we have to take a fairly solid object and make it bank and do all this kind of crazy stuff. That was a nightmare.
It actually gives some freedom because you're not bound to the tracks, but it also makes creates more,
how much do you bank?
more challenges.
Like this in the curves, like everyone just loses their
Yes,
lunch. That sounds
exactly.
So it was, but it took probably 3 weeks to set up that transit.
For you guys, how, and this is just something I was thinking about, how easy did you guys think it was to visualize the Area 18 and how it would feel during Whitebox? Because usually you kind of get a feel for it, but I feel like Area 18, because of its nature of being a city planet and cities everywhere, I feel like it was really difficult to get sense of how that space was going to feel in Whitebox until we had some proper buildings and everything in there.
I mean, when Let's start with the white.
Están hablando de varias cosas, pero bueno, importante es el tema de que el tema del tránsito pues se sentían con mucha más libertad porque no iban encajado a carriles y demás, aunque bueno, tenían que hacer el tema de peraltar peraltar las curvas y demás, de que podrían hacer eso, pero bueno, que en definitiva tendría más libertad. Y le está preguntando ahora al compañero, a los otros compañeros, bueno, a la hora de hacer lo que es Área 18, que quizás era un poco más complicado sentir esa visión de escala cuando estaba en Whitebox, porque en Whitebox no hay texturas ni nada, simplemente son, pues eso, bloques blancos, pues se llama Whitebox. Traducido literal caja blanca, ¿no? Entonces a la hora de hacer lo que es el diseño, el conseguir eso pues era más complicado, ¿no? El conseguir la sensación de que estaban haciendo una ciudad, un planeta enorme.
It takes a bit of
remember
creativity
way
to
back
see a white box. And kind of
Yeah.
imagining like this white thing here, that's going to be an amazing
Yeah.
skyscraper. But it's just a box. Yes, but could be a skyscraper.
I remember way back when we were trying to look at the initial version of Area 18 that we first put on a planet for one of our sitcom demos. And we took the original Area 18 standalone level and basically just dropped it on a planet with like the first iteration of the procedural planet tech with all the hard surface elements on there. And everyone's like, internally, everyone's jaws were just like on the floor. It was nuts. But in that same moment, we also realized how much work was ahead of us as well with like how we were going to have to change that.
Claro, estaban hablando de la primera vez que enseñaron Área 18. La primera vez que enseñaron Área 18 en el planeta, bueno, el planeta Arcor, fue un placeholder, no sabemos que fue un placeholder, y simplemente pillaron todo el trabajo que tenían hecho. Estaban haciendo pruebas para todo el sistema procedural y demás que estaban haciendo para poder hacer lo que era la ciudad, que era un concepto en el que ellos estaban trabajando. Cuando lo plasmaron en el planeta, que se les cayeron los huevos al suelo a todo el equipo también, porque vieron que era una pasada, pero también a la vez se dieron cuenta de la cantidad de trabajo que tenían que hacer por delante para tener pues lo que tenemos hoy.
We wanted the vibe to go for that version of Area 18, like at least in the CitizenCon demo that we did way back then, that you can kind of see that's being brought through now, even though it's a completely different LZ now. But yeah, it was really fun for me.
You touched on a point there about like dealing with the new tech and everything. So like what I did for Area 18, I specifically worked on the planet along with Pascal. And I think I did some material work for Area 18, but the taking the organic planet, and I've spoken about this a lot in like previous segments and things, but taking that organic planet tech and making that work for assets that are sometimes kilometers in size, sometimes hundreds of meters in height. And something that Boy said before as well, like how do you take a city, a flat city, and you put it on a curved planet, especially since our planets are a sixth scale or something like that, right? I don't know what the scale of our planets are, but you gotta, there's so much work that you gotta do to figure that out. But it was,
I remember having so many conversations with you pulling your hair out going, how the hell do I just do this?
yeah, it's like, hey Josh, meet me down at the pub after work. I gotta cry a little bit. But honestly, it was a lot of fun. Like, I think me and Pascal had a lot of fun doing that. And there's so much that I'd go back and change about how we did this, the city. I think one thing specific is just just the mesh quality really for the planet city meshes. I think there's a lot that I can do to bring a lot of diversity to that now, while still like really keeping within the same performance. One really fun thing we did back then, like basically the way our procedural planet tech worked then is that you take these meshes and you spawn them like procedurally on a splat map. So basically a map that says on the red area you're going to put in these meshes, on the green area you're going to put in these meshes, and then it puts it in at different scales, rotations, etc., right? And I think one thing that I thought was really fun to do, because it felt like the planet was really still. I really like adding movement to our locations. Like my favorite thing is to add movement to the locations. So I got I hope I don't get too technical here, so I'm going to try to make it easy. I got a texture that was panning of these little cars and little glowing cars, right? And I got a poly strip and some strips of polygons that just went left, right, forward, and I spawned that across the entire planet just to have a feel for it. And then you look back on it, and suddenly there's all these little these little pinprick movements on on the overall frame, and it just made it feel like so much more alive, right? And I think now with all the
Bueno, varias cosas. Está hablando de que la locura que era. La ciudad pues era plana, el diseño era plano y el amoldar esa zona plana a una zona, a algo esférico como era el planeta, que fue pues un reto bastante gordo, pero que fue bastante divertido. Y junto con Pascal, que es una de las personas que es la persona encargada de la tecnología planetaria, y también que cuando empezaron a trabajar al principio, la forma que tenían de trabajo procedural en los planetas funcionaba en plan, pues aquí tenemos una zona roja y una zona verde, pues en la zona roja vas a spawnear esta red de cosas procedurales, en la zona verde vas a spawnear esta otra. Y funcionaba así, pero todo parecía muy estático. Y él quería una manera de poder añadir dinamismo a lo que era el planeta para darle vida, para dar sensación de vida. Y entonces lo que hizo fue añadir, por un lado, polígonos de. O sea, como de colores, ¿vale? Como en los edificios y demás, eso que vemos de pues que se iba moviendo y tal. Y luego mini vehículos pequeñitos y demás. Entonces, cuando puso a rodar todo eso en lo que es el planeta, por las diferentes zonas, que definitivamente tenía una sensación que el planeta estaba mucho, mucho más vivo, ¿no?
My involvement was lead environment artist, so that's kind of overseeing the landing zone from an art point of view, managing the team, giving them feedback, looking at schedules and things like that, boring stuff. I also did some actual artwork by looking at the composition of the cityscape as a whole. But in terms of like what I was just saying, it's really, we had a lot of news with ArtCorp. Again, Noan and Pascal really pushed the procedural planet tech to its limits at the time, because it's made for organic terrain to spawn lots of trees on. It's not made for a planet to spawn lots of buildings on. There's a difference in, you know, a cluster of trees to a cluster of buildings and how they work, right? And also just in terms of like just the budgets, like obviously we know like an end frame budget in terms of draw calls and poly counts, but in terms of like how you distribute that between buildings, it was completely unknown. So it's like how you've got a landing zone itself with like the kind of the hero buildings that you're walking around, and then you've got some buildings that you can fly around, and maybe they don't need to be such high detail, and then there's buildings lower to the ground and the small kind of scattered ones by the procedural system. But in terms of trying to balance that all out, it's very much a new process. So just kind of, it was a bit of trial and error really, and finding what we could push, what could work. And
ya está hablando un poco de todo el tema de la zona de cómo hacer los edificios. Pues hay zonas que están, digamos, más detalladas, más esculpidas a mano, por así decirlo. Luego hay zonas más procedurales que descansan sobre que esas zonas más detalladas descansan sobre esas zonas procedurales. Y cómo conseguir el balance, el equilibrio, pues al final está rendimiento y muchas cosas y tal. Y que fue como una prueba para ellos y una nueva forma una nueva experiencia, una nueva forma de trabajar. El tratar de poder equilibrar todo eso para conseguir un efecto deseable, ¿no? Deseado.
and to figure out that point of view. So, but yeah, we did learn a lot from Lawville going to Area 18, such as don't have the spaceport like in the city, which is what we did with Lawville. We kind of, they're still quite close, but they're kind of pushed away, and that helped with a lot of different things. And I think
close
something
in Star Citizen terms, right? Because you're
Yeah,
still pretty far. So
yeah,
many
yeah.
kilometers.
Well, I mean, airports usually are not in a city, right? They're usually like on the outskirts of a city, generally.
Yeah.
So It's a good reason for that, right? You don't know planes flying around skyscrapers. But anyway, the other thing that Andreas touched on was the whole track and flying shuttle aspect, and I think it was actually a really good decision not to have trains like not every landing zone is a train track. Like some are flying, some are trains, and
Está
I think
diciendo
there was
que fue una buena decisión el hecho de que no, bueno, pues que no todas las zonas tuviesen un tren, algunas fuesen voladoras, otras fuesen, algunas tuvieran vías, ¿no? Tenemos el ejemplo de Microtech, Área 18, a ver qué pasa ahora con Horizon.
which I actually really enjoyed. Like that's one of my favorite bits of Area 18 is actually being able to go through the city and actually past the landing zone. You know, having that it still gets me whenever I walk on the bridge and the bus is like going past you. It's still such a great moment for me.
Dice que es una de las cosas que más le gusta de 18, todo lo que es el tema del tránsito, de pasar por lo que es la ciudad y tener esa experiencia, ¿no? Visual desde lo que es el sistema de transporte de Área 18.
Credit the 5-10 minutes after our limit.
Amazing.
Sure.
Because we do want to get into some of these backer questions. The issues with the backer questions this week, ladies and gentlemen, is that this is the landing zone content team, and the overwhelming majority of your questions were feature related, not content related. So we chose to take this time and to do a little review of the work of the past and whatnot. But we do have quite a few questions that we think we can answer here. Before we get to those, let's hit New Babbage real quick. We've now gone from asteroids to desert dirt to city, and now we're going to snow. And our biggest and baddest landing zone to date. Where did we start with New Babbage? What did we set out to do with New Babbage to separate it from every other landing zone that we did so far?
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, you could position to answer that, Josh.
Why
Sorry.
did you say
I
that?
was trying to like segue into you, but never mind. That was awkward. Go for it, Josh.
No, I mean it's literally that, right? It's a cold location, so like the biggest thing that you immediately notice towards any of the other locations is it has a lot more of an environmental impact than any others. This was actually my first environment on the.
Están preguntándole, bueno, diciendo Discolando que las preguntas que han puesto ahí que no las responde porque son todas de características, la mayoría, que no tiene nada que ver, y este es el equipo de Landing Zone. Entonces que han optado por hacer un resumen así de esta manera. ¿Y qué podrían decir para qué es lo que más distingue a Microtech de otras zonas de aterrizaje? Bueno, pues el frío, ¿no? Y el gran impacto que tiene lo que es el entorno climático que hay allí con respecto a lo que es la zona de aterrizaje.
I think it was a small section of Grey Box City at that point that we were working with, and we did a little bit of a dressing pass to kind of figure out where everything would go, and then took the snowy planet and just started noodling on it, trying to figure out what we needed to do with shaders, what we needed to do with placed assets like snowdrift. So we ended up going in with some individual, like a small kit of very scalable assets, which were basically snow mounds, where we could put them up against assets and spread them around to kind of create this nice blend between a lot of the buildings. So like you can kind of see if we had a tower structure or something, we could have a small buildup of snow in front of it, and then
Claro, está diciendo que una de las cosas que hicieron fue recetar texturas, shaders también, y hicieron un pequeño conjunto de recursos muy escalable para poder ayudar a que los edificios se mezclasen con el ambiente. Entonces, si tenían una gran torre, pues podían ponerle como una montaña de nieve y dar la sensación de que estaba pues nevado todo, ¿no? Y con los edificios lo mismo.
But we were looking at adding like more lights to the structures for this. Like Area 18 has a lot of lights because it's a city planet, of course, but we wanted to add more lights down low where the players can walk. So in this same visual target, we looked at things where we would be shooting lights up the sides of buildings.
Está diciendo de que querían añadir más luces. Sabemos que Área 18 es la ciudad de las luces, pero aquí lo que querían era añadir más luces a lo que es a nivel de por los jugadores, por donde caminan.
So that was really interesting. And then, like in the same breath, we went and explored a lot more of bringing the city out into the surrounding environment. So we have like the main landing area of the first person spaces where you go do your shopping and whatnot, but the city as a whole is quite spread out. I'm not sure how it compares to Lawville.
Claro, luego querían hacer lo que es la ciudad más esparcida, más metida en lo que era el entorno, el ambiente. Y vemos cómo hay una separación pues, entre el space por la zona comercial o la zona de viviendas, que está todo repartido por lo que es la zona, ¿no?
Around the surrounding valley, bringing them and kind of figuring out what they could be and dressing them up really nicely and integrating them into the surrounding mountainscape and dressing them with all the snow piles and stuff. So that was really fun, and probably is one of the biggest things that sets it apart from all of our other landing zones, I would say.
From a design point of view as well, it is inside a dome, which does create a few, not issues, but it just makes navigation, for example, and orientation inside a space like that thing you have to be quite aware of, right? And we also try to improve a lot on the accessibility into the location to add more like side entrances and just get this feeling that you can get in and out in a lot of different places and not just via the spaceport, for example. So it was a lot about navigation and kind of orientation of the player in that location.
Cool.
I think the navigation was has been the most successful in the landing zone in terms of getting you around, and the signage is quite clear.
Está diciendo de que la navegación dentro de la zona de aterrizaje que está muy lograda, es la mejor lograda hasta ahora. Todo el tema de los biodomos, ¿no? De esas zonas centrales y tal, que todo está súper bien señalizado y es cierto. Todo muy limpio y claro, ¿no?
So, last question, then we'll get into the backer stuff here. What's been your favorite aspect of each landing zone to date so far?
And someone can choose one.
I have one, and it's probably surprising coming from an artist. Like, you probably think like it's going to be art related, but I think it's actually for me the sound design. And I think that, I mean, sound makes up like a big chunk of the experience, right? And we look at the art a lot, so we get used to the art, and it's super refreshing when the sound designer submits this stuff, and we just get this. You go in the editor, and it's like a whole new place when the sound kicks in. It's
Está
awesome.
preguntándole qué cosas les gustan más de las zonas de aterrizaje y dice que una de las cosas que más le gusta es el sonido que a pesar de que sea un artista, pues escuchar el sonido de que una vez haces la pieza y luego cuando vas al editor y escuchas ese sonido, que es una experiencia totalmente diferente, ¿no?
Game up and go, there's some like either music or actually like sound around and it's got a specific word, sound like it's part of the location and stuff that comes through. It's really nice. I think Area 18 is quite successful in that, and New Babbage.
Yeah, I was about to say that's Area 18 is like my favorite for that, and I think for that exact reason too. Like the mood and vibe that you get in Area 18 to me is just like there's a lot of
Dice
other games out there that do
este
it
hombre,
quite
¿no? Que para él la zona donde más se conecta en ese sentido con el sonido, que es Área 18 y que la vibra que transmite, que es algo que le encanta. Dice que lo hace sentir dentro, ¿no?
All the neon signs and the city vibe you have around, and I think Area 18 also has like a lot of potential for the further expansions. It's like with all the rooftops we have and all the things we can potentially do more with, like the city, like it's there, and I think it's probably the most easiest, or like the locations I would like to do more stuff on, and yeah.
I mean, really cool. I agree. Like the ambience of Area 18 is by far one of my favorite aspects, right? It's just this sensory overload when you walk around, all the music, You walk around in the city, and after a while,
Claro,
you kind of
dice
get
otra vez,
used to it. And
este también dice otra vez que Área 18 es una de sus favoritas por la sobrecarga de sonido, de todo, que es pues bastante contento, ¿no? con el resultado. Están.
Sorry, I remembered the word diegetic is when the soundscape is coming from the environment. For me, I think New Babbage is my favorite landing zone.
Dice New Babbage, ahí lo tenemos, otra opinión
Partly
diferente.
because it feels like the most realistic landing zone in terms of it feels very grounded as a city. It feels like a realistic city.
No estoy de acuerdo con él en ese sentido, porque dice que es la ciudad que más se siente, que tiene más sentido, que está bien plantada, que al final está todo donde tiene que estar realmente.
The domes, as well as like flying around the actual city, it feels the most kind of grounded in reality, which
Claro,
which
y
I'm looking
dice que
forward to.
además el viajar a lo largo de la ciudad, o sea, entre la ciudad, entre los edificios, que es lo más parecido a la realidad, ¿no?
I'm gonna cheap out and agree with Boy, but I used to I used to have a career in audio before I did this, so I think audio is one of the things that's the most important to me in almost any piece of anything, and it drives the emotion, it drives the feeling,
Dice que este hombre pues estuvo también haciendo carrera en audio antes de hacer lo que está haciendo. Y dice que es algo muy importante para él porque conduce las emociones, los sentimientos, las sensaciones, ¿no? Mejor dicho, emociones, sensaciones.
And there was something so incredibly special about the Carrack coming in, and the music just hit all of the right notes. And you see the landscape of New Babbage, and you hear the wind, and you hear the thrusters of the Carrack firing, and the music is just swelling up. And that in an auditorium probably amplified the the feel of it, sure, but it to me just that music and the audio is such an integral part of the experience.
Claro, está comentando de que cuando vio todo lo que es la exposición en un auditorio, que quizás eso ensalce lo que es la sensación, pero cuando vio todo lo que es la carra con los motores, el sonido del viento, esa escena de entrada en New Babbage, que fue impresionante para él.
For some inspiration, but yeah,
So many
like
playlists.
so many playlists. But yeah, that's it for me.
All right.
The amount of times I've listened to the Blade Runner soundtrack while working on this game is insane. Like many times.
Dice que algunas veces
Actually, one of my
trabaja
favorite
con la banda
one of
sonora
my
del
favorite
juego.
things is when people are presenting to CR in like the Tuesday or the Thursday meeting, and they've put a track under their presentation, and CR's like, "What music is this?" And whatever. We get sidetracked by talking about the music. Mood tracks are very important in what we do. All right, so we are at the normal time limit, guys. If anybody's got a meeting or something that they have to go to, feel free. We're gonna try to get 15 questions in the next 10 minutes of OT. So if you can stick around, we're gonna try to keep it under 10 minutes here.
Vamos a intentar conseguir 50
and let's jump right into
15 preguntas en los siguientes minutos.
Why is there no love for player hangers?
there will be, maybe.
Anything more you can give us?
Yeah. I mean, it's they've been an external kind of external component to the game for a long time, and the idea would be that we want to make Star Citizen an all-encompassing game, right? So we would like to probably bring them into the game rather than having as this external thing that we have to support forever and ever.
So you're saying that at some point there's going to be some revised version of player hangers integrated into the PU.
You said it.
There's evidence.
¿Por qué no hay? Esta se la pregunté yo. ¿Por qué no hay hangares de jugadores en el juego? Y dijo que ahora mismo que es pronto, pero que en algún punto habrá hangares de jugadores en el juego.
We're going to continue that kind of theme forward. So we've got these the hangar companies, the hangar brands that are starting to show more their influence in the landing zones themselves.
Okay. How do you decide the number of ship hangars for a landing zone? Is it based on server caps or something else?
Well, when we built Lorville, I sat down and I said 42, and that was what we did. It is based on a little bit like common sense, right? But if you have somewhere between 30 and 50...
¿Qué determina el número de hangares o el número de naves que pueda haber? Y dice que bueno, que él simplemente...
hangars at the moment, but there is space for it to be added in the future.
Simplemente que el hijo se sentó y dijo 42 y bueno, pues que es simplemente un poco de sentido común.
Pads in the Lorville CBD Tower. For the love of God and all that is holy, let us land on the CBD building at Lorville to sell stuff past.
¿Qué ha pasado? Por el amor de Dios, ¿qué ha pasado con los landing de la torre? Es que hay mucha gente que ha preguntado, hay mucha gente que ha preguntado eso.
Yeah, I mean, okay, let's do it. I'll be right back. No, I mean, the way we handle landing and parking in the game in general is something that we revisit many times, right? And there will be moments where we change how things work. That's just the nature of it. So it's very possible that in the future we might see revisions to the way the player enters various landing areas.
Bueno, en el futuro quizás habrá revisiones de la forma en la que el jugador entre a ciertas zonas de aterrizaje.
Well, hangars are a common element, but certain landing pads are, I would class as common elements as well. And again, going back to future-proofing locations, you'll notice in both Area 18 and New Babbage, it's not just a landing pad on its own. There's always a door there for potential elevator, and that's helping us for the future. So hey, we do want to go inside a specific building. There's the potential there. We can link it to an elevator, and so on. So it's not just CBD, but landing pads in general. We want to have the opportunity to expand on what you can do.
Dice que no solamente es en el CBD, en el edificio de Lorville, que pueden poner un elevador en el futuro, sino que quieren expandirse en el campo de los landing, en otras, los landing pads, en otras ubicaciones también.
Like landing pads, which we apply to ArcCorp, and so on and so forth.
ArcCorp, por ejemplo,
we
también se
learned it
aplicaría
after
eso.
Lorville, so,
Fair. You mentioned elevators, Nick. Outward-facing glassy elevators where the riders can see their dramatic descent are a big part of high-tech cities and sci-fi, and many buildings today in the world have them. One might expect to see them in places like New Babbage or other similar locales.
Si vamos a ver elevadores panorámicos, como hay en otros lugares, o sea, en otras pelis o ciencia ficción y demás.
Land in a hangar, you jump in an elevator, and you ride through the whole thing, and then you just appear. Right? A long time ago, we had a transit system which literally just teleported you from A to B, and then we got our physically moving elevators that now actually take you physically through the space. And there will be future iterations of that to enhance the feeling of traversal in a location. And what is mentioned here is also one of those things that is very much something that we're looking into, because you don't want to be stuck in a box and go 5 minutes later you arrive, right? You want to get this sensation of the journey towards your destination, right?
There's correct me if I'm wrong, Andres, but there's two forms of transit. There's ones that kind of teleport and ones that are on a spline, and there's no difference between an elevator and a train.
Don't have any teleporting elevators anymore at all. They're all actually physically traveling. Some of them, like that are on a spline, for example, let's say a Levski elevator that physically moves from like right. That one is on a spline, and you can see and you can look through the window and everything, right? But every other elevator is physically traveling through limbo. So
yeah, so essentially the difference between a train and there's not much difference at all between a train.
No.
Bueno, está comentando de que sí que es algo que definitivamente está mirando en ello para que no siempre viajes en una caja y que tengas la sensación de que realmente te estás trasladando. Pero ya sabemos que esto no lo van a poder hacer para todos los lugares. Aparte, el tema está en que dice que, bueno, que como ya sabemos no hay ningún tipo de teleport mágico, de teletransportación mágica, sino que la única diferencia entre un tren y un elevador, bueno, es que el elevador pues no se ve lo que hay fuera ni nada, pero realmente nos vamos moviendo físicamente, ¿no?
of these things we want to do. So it goes back to what you said at the beginning about the almighty Lou, right? We do plan for it and we have it in the location, it's ready to go. We just need to get around to it.
All right, speed around here. Roads. What can you tell us about roads, streets, highways?
Nos puede decir las carreteras, calles, ¿qué nos pueden decir de eso?
So there's definitely like potential there with roads. Like hopefully you've all seen the river showcase. So there's potential to do something like that with terrain deformation, so you'd have more natural things. It really depends on the landing zone. There's not been a a huge need. for
Dice que
roads,
hemos
but
visto lo que
we
se han
wouldn't-
hecho con los ríos y tal, que hay potencial para deformaciones de terreno en ese sentido para poder hacer las carreteras.
Out. Could we ever see open air landing pads on Area 18? Seems like a bit of a waste to have all that flat space around the ports that's clearly marked for ships to land and take off from, yet not be able to land in those spaces.
If you look at the landing zones, a lot of specifically the spaceports, a lot of the landing pads and stuff you see, it's meant to be for AI traffic, because we do want to have this movement of all kinds of ships coming and going, right? Most places are a little bit static at the moment, right? So many of those pads will be used for that. In the end, when it comes to landing for the players, we do spawn in and out our ships, and we ideally don't want to have them just pop out of existence. So it could be that in some locations we do have landing pads, but it's like premium parking because your ship is going to stay there. It's not going to despawn. You're going to pay quite a bit of money because you're literally occupying one of those magic 42 numbers that exists, right? So
Okay.
About the safety, right? Like in a hangar, you're in the hangar, door closes, you're
Yeah.
safe. Whereas if you land on a pad, it's kind of up to, you got to lock your ship and it's not going to despawn like Andreas. It's going to stay there, so someone
might TP
do
if
whatever
they
they want to do with it.
Están hablando un poquito sobre el tema de los pads y todo, que se ven bastantes landing pads en el 18, pero que no se utilizan, de si en algún momento se va a poder utilizar y demás. El caso es que dicen que, bueno, que como en el futuro, que esto es importante, dicen que tendremos que pagar como una especie de renta por atracar en un hangar, pues al final es un sitio cerrado, protegido. Tendremos que pagar por tener allí la nave. Y en el caso de que lo queramos dejar en un landing pad, pues el landing pad la nave no se guardará ni nada por el estilo, simplemente se quedará allí y bueno, pues estará expuesta a los peligros del ambiente.
Grand, right? So we do want to return to that and start working on that. Yeah. I mean, what you see right now is what we're focusing on at the moment is laying down the skeleton of the solar system, and we will fill in the meat once the skeleton is fully assembled.
Okay. Ships like the Carrack can barely fit inside current hangars.
Yeah.
Has there been any talk about increasing the size of the largest ones?
That ship used to be smaller, just saying.
I mean, the ship can. You say it can't fit in hangars. There's an extra large hangar. It's got more than enough space.
Yeah, I mean the extra large hangar is like 4 times the size of a Carrack.
Yeah.
But how
So
many extra large
really-
hangars are there?
The problem is like it's still flagged as a ship that in theory should land in a large hangar, which it could before it became a very ambitious little ship, the little ship that could. And now it's stretching the borders a little bit, so it might have to move into a bigger apartment.
It's why ships getting bigger is not automatically a good thing. Grimhex got some touch-ups recently. Any plans to go back to Area?
Que están hablando sobre el tema de la cara, de que vaya tan justo a los hangares y que dice esa nave debería haber sido más pequeña, pero como se emocionaron con la nave, pues la hicieron más grande de lo que debería. Y en realidad, pues hay naves, o sea, hay hangares más grandes en los que puede aterrizar esa nave y quizás deba de cambiar a esas zonas de aterrizaje más grandes en vez de caber en una simplemente de tamaño L.
With the amount of content we have in them, right? But it will be justified in the future when the landing zones gets expanded.
Okay.
So
It's all about what the priority is. So and the feature, it's more tied to like what the next feature is. So if the next feature is hospitals, then we'd look at something like hospitals in landing zones. Wouldn't want to just expand landing zones for no reason, if that makes sense. So when restrooms is the next feature, then that's where the toilets will come in. But it's all going to be down to that. So if there's a mission giver for a specific area, like the workers' district of Louisville, that needs to go in for a specific reason, then that's the time it would go in, right?
I mean,
But like we've mentioned before, we're trying to future-proof all our landing zones for much more expansion than what they currently are.
I'm gonna get an email from Richard Tyrer. I know it.
See you, Jared.
Last question. It's been a while since we've discovered a secret area like Bennyhenge. Do you plan to do more? And if you could do anything, what would you want to sneak in there?
I think people should look a little bit more.
Yeah, the last place that has
Yeah,
been
there's a-
discovered, some places may just not have been discovered.
So you're saying
And
there are
lying.
things,
I mean-
there's some areas out there that haven't been found.
There's areas out there. I mean, I know that I've made a few for New Babbage that I think I've given a few hints at on Reddit every now and again, but I've never actually seen a picture of it. So it might have been discovered, but I've not seen it personally. But there's a few places around Orison that have spectacular views where one might have a party at. So that could be cool.
Well, they can't look at the Orison ones yet, but
I think you meant,
No,
did you
that's
mean New
still
Babbage though?
Sorry, yes, I did mean New Babbage. Sorry.
okay. you
All
meant
we're
New Babbage.
saying is
Okay.
that if you look for it, you will find it.
that you
Maybe.
can't guarantee that. You can't guarantee that.
Just have to look
Clearly, you're not
harder.
looking hard enough.
Can't
I
Exactly.
guarantee
mean,
that.
the space is pretty big, right?
All right. That's it, gentlemen. Thank you so much for also spending the extra time with us afterwards. I know it's the end of your week. It's Friday. Many of you, I was going to say want to go home, but that's not the case anymore. You're already there. Thank you so much anyway for staying afterwards. Everybody, for Boy, for Manuel, for Luan, for Nick, for Andreas, and for Josh.
I think it's
Josh.
Josh.
I'm Jared. Thank you so
think
much
I'm
for
me.
taking this trip down memory lane with the Landing Zone content team. We are off next week. Next week is the return of Calling All Devs. We've got Richard Tyrer.
Good.
We've got Richard
Perfect.
Tyrer talking about the future of
restaurant.
inventory, the future of inventory in Star Citizen, including personal inventory, external inventory, and something you've
Oh.
never heard of before, local inventory. So stay tuned. for that next
Dios
Friday.
mío.
Take care, everybody.
Oh,
See you later.
Dios
Bye.
mío.
Bye-bye.
Oh,
Bye.
Dios mío.
Assuming he still
Bye.
wants to be on the show after we've created bathroom work for him.
Intestinal inventory. Can we do that?
Oh, Dios mío, chavales.
We're gonna turn into darkness.
Vale, lo último que han dicho es, bueno, primero, que hay zonas, porque le han preguntado si va a haber zonas más zonas o tenían pensado hacer más zonas como la de Big Venice, que al principio era una zona oculta y teníamos que visitarla. También está, por ejemplo, la Javelin estrellada. Nos han comentado de que hay unas cuantas zonas, por lo visto, en Microtech, unas zonas secretas y tal, que ahora me acaba de picar a ir a buscar. Y para la semana es el Calling All Devs y efectivamente van a hablar sobre el inventario local, inventario físico y toda la mandanga. Toda la mandanga, joder. Muchas gracias a la del segundo por la suscripción. Gracias por esos bits, chavales. Y gracias por la suscripción también, Winker. Que bueno, ya sabéis que cuando estoy doblando no puedo... O sea, tengo que estar totalmente centrado en lo que están diciendo. Y nos vamos al PU, chavales. Ahora vengo.